Hello YouTube, my name is Shiffo and welcome to my channel. It has been almost 20 years since we last saw Kain from the Legacy of Kain franchise, ending the game Defiance with a cliffhanger, or to better phrase it, with the coin landing on its edge without us knowing on which side the coin actually lands, with 2 failed attempts to reboot the series. In this video I want to address whether we need another Legacy of Kain game, and will be reflecting on what made these games great. Keep in mind that the video contains spoilers. Let's dive into it. The first Legacy of Kain was released in 1996 called Blood Omen, following the tale of a young noble, ambushed, who was offered a deal to take revenge on his killers by turning into a vampire. The story takes a wild spin where Kain gets involved with the guardians of his world called Nosgoth, and Kain needing to restore balance to the world by slaying all of the corrupted protectors of each pillar, with the addition of time traveling and time paradoxes to create a very complex story. The beauty of this game is that it's one of the first games that had this emphasis on storytelling and great voice acting. The game is filled with a lot of beautiful monologues and audio where Kain very detailedly describes what he is feeling or thinking.
The carnage from battle was gone. Yet there was something amiss. From the distance, I heard cries, and a breeze from the south carried with it the faint odor of vampire blood.
As this game is a top-down RPG type of game, prior to these games, dialogue would be expressed with text. And normally games were always about hero-like protagonists that are always doing the right thing. Kain essentially is an anti-hero who will do everything it takes to win. It's refreshing to play as such a bad guy. At the end of the game, Kain got presented with the choice to damn Nosgoth or kill himself to save Nosgoth. His choice led to the events of the sequels. The game got followed up with 2 sequels that changed the main character from Kain to Raziel, his trusted right hand that got executed by Kain for the hubris of evolving before Kain and growing a pair of wings. This game was wonderful in its right because it showed a third-person 3D perspective of this story, with a very likable character, with Raziel, a noble prince with a tale of revenge. Raziel is a vampire, but his strong moral and values are making him so interesting and draws a connection with him, compared to Kain, who does not care about values and will do everything to win. The game ended with a cliffhanger, with Kain escaping back in time, which takes us to the sequel of Soul Reaver, which really gives us this next level of story and character development. The game is full of twists, completely changing your perspective on Kain and on who the true enemy is. Full of time paradoxes to make the story as complex as it can be. And this story reveals just how human Raziel became when entering the 3rd stage of his life, starting as a human, becoming a vampire, and ending up as a soul-devouring wraith. During the first 2 games, Raziel was romanticizing his origins as a Seraphim warrior, a vampire hunter. But the events of Soul Reaver 2 ended with this beautiful climax, where Raziel renounces his origin.
You're a righteous fiend, aren't you? Apparently I am.
And actually revealing that he played a huge part in his own creation as the vampire assisting Kain. Ending the game with breaking down Raziel completely as he comes eye in eye with his fate. The last game in the series, Defiance, was a merger of the original Blood Omen and the Soul Reaver series, where you take control of Kain and also Raziel. The game was very different compared to the prior games, with a bigger emphasis on combat, and also cinematic camera angles compared to the behind the back angle from the Soul Reaver game. What made this game great is that you can see the amazing character development in Raziel, where he begins the game depressed and taking zero action to prevent his terrible fate, with eventually facing his destiny and being completely fed up with being manipulated and controlled by other people, which makes him perform choices that are not generating the most positive outcomes, clouding his judgment. This series, together with the Metal Gear games, raised the bar of storytelling and voice acting in games. Jumping back to 2021, almost 20 years later, the question I'm asking is, do we need another Legacy of the Kain game? Looking back at the series, one could argue that this was a game suitable for the early console days. Especially if you look at the platforming mechanics where you need to specifically time jumps according to your movements, which are very frustrating to play in this day and age. It seems as though modern gaming has made me accustomed to everything being very easy. This is also noticeable in the amount of backtracking required in the game in a Metroidvania style, where you unlock new powers and need to backtrack to enter a specific location in the game, without any marks in your HUD to guide you where you need to be. The amazing strength of this game is the incredible voice acting and storytelling of the game. This takes me back to an argument the CEO of EA made, telling that single player is dead. This sentiment or belief is visible in the actions of Square Enix, the owner of the Legacy of Kain IP as well, where he saw that they tried to reboot the Legacy of Kain game in a spin-off, and decided to cancel the project to eventually reboot it again in a game called Nosgoth, which was intended to have a multiplayer component but instead was released as multiplayer only, which resulted in the game being a huge flop since it was nowhere near the same quality as the original series. That single player games are dead is completely false, and what this actually means is that these companies are able to monetize multiplayer games better with microtransactions and loot boxes. Flash forward to 2020 and we have Cyberpunk 2077, a single player game selling over 13 million copies. This shows that single player is not dead. In my opinion, it would be awesome if a studio like CD Projekt Red would be able to license the Legacy of Kain IP for Square Enix and create a Witcher-like experience with a massive emphasis on storytelling. We are 20 years later and the coin is still turning. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, don't forget to press the like button, and if you like content like this, don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you, bye.